You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Just picking up a book I've been reading lately. You know, it's kind of interesting. In 1940s, Marvel did the first version of Captain America for Timely Comics. That was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. And then in 1963, they did another version of Captain America. They redid the origin story with Stan Lee writing and Jack Kirby drawing. And I noticed there's a big difference in that in the first one, Cap doesn't care that the spy is running into a big electromagnetometer or whatever they call it, and is going to die. He's rather happy with it. He goes, oh, he got what he deserves. In the second one, he actually tries to stop the guy from killing himself. And all I could think of is that what happened between 1940 and 1963? Oh, yeah, Jack Kirby went to war. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. You know, it is kind of interesting if you ever get a chance to read the two, because the first version of Captain America's origin feels very claustrophobic. It's the layouts are done by Joe Simon, and the actual characters are drawn by Jack Kirby, but people don't fit into the panels. It's like part of them are in the panels. You know, someone's the cut off side of the head. We see a hand pulling a gun out of a drawer. They're all very, you know, and everything is very much about, you know, the Germans are dangerous and they could be infiltrating our country at any moment, and we definitely need to stop them. And it was very an anti-isolationist piece. And then we get the redo of it, and it's much more bombastic Jack Kirby art style that we're used to. And, you know, much more powerful, but it really does change the attitudes between 1940 and 1963. And actually, I find that very fascinating because in 1940, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby wanted people to get into the... wanted America to get into the war, where in 1963, they were trying to figure out how to bring a character who had done well during the war, failed after, back, and they did it by questioning the very things that people were starting to question. So, very interesting. Kyle. Oh, JD says, is that because a lot of the comics were comic strips and had to cram a lot in them? No. The Captain America origin in 1940, Martin Goodman actually when he assigned them the book, the entire thing was Captain America. They had an entire book to fill, which is unique because most books around then would have multiple stories by different characters. Like Marvel Comics #1 came out at that point, and it had a story with Namor and the Angel and Human Torch and Kazar and a bunch of other stuff. It had some prose, a couple page prose story, and then it had little comic strips in there. So, you know, when he had Joe Simon do Captain America, he gave them the entire book. So Yeah, no, it wasn't done as a comic strip. It was done for an actual comic book, and they were given the entire book. So they could have taken as many pages as they wanted. They still only did it in 8 pages, though. It was more, they had a very specific agenda because at the time there was still a lot of people that supported the Nazi Party. We weren't in the war yet. This was a year before Pearl Harbor. And punching Hitler on the cover and stuff like that, that was not a common thing. That was not, everybody was gung-ho about going to the war. We were at an isolationist period in our life, in our country, where the United States, most people didn't want to get into the war. They didn't want to deal with European problems and Asian problems and stuff. So this was a couple Jewish immigrants going, no, we really need to take care of these guys because they're going to be a problem. So, all right, that's not really what our topic is going to be today. We are, as Kyle asks, yeah, it definitely feels claustrophobic. That's the best way I could describe it. We are going to talk about Sandman. I'm 3 episodes in. I didn't want to get too far into it because I'm at a point now where I don't like binge watching stuff. I want to take some time and kind of soak it in, and also to stretch out the amount of time we spend on the show, because if a show is good, but we spend 1 hour talking about it and then we don't talk about it again, it's not getting the same type of coverage as something like one of the Disney Plus shows that, Miss Marvel is going to have 9 episodes. We're going to be talking about it for 9 weeks. That's much more coverage than Sandman's going to get. The fact that they dropped all 10 episodes at once. Is Sandman better than She-Hulk? Don't know. 2 different types of shows, 2 different style of shows. And we haven't seen She-Hulk yet, but don't both of them deserve the same type of attention? So I watched 3 episodes last night. I have thoughts on it. Some of them are good. Some of them are not so good. So we will get on that. But I do want to talk about something that came out today. And this has to do with all this stuff going on, the Batgirl cancellation. A lot of people have been wondering why Warner Brothers keeps moving ahead with The Flash. And mainly it's because they've spent $200 to $300 million on it. Kyle, we know you're going to love Sandman and you're probably going to hate She-Hulk, but there are going to be people who are completely opposite on that. But we are going to talk about Sandman. But now there's more reports of Ezra Miller getting into trouble. And now it's being reported by The Hollywood Reporter, which when you say reported by The Hollywood Reporter, that's kind of redundant. I realize that's what they do. They report. That's why they're The Hollywood Reporter. But The Hollywood Reporter is saying that Warner Brothers is kind of in a thing where they're looking at 3 possible scenarios. Now, the first scenario is the one that they're hoping for, is that Ezra Miller is going to return home, that whose mother is going to help the actor and is going to get some help, some treatment, maybe down the lines. And I apologize. They are going to get some treatment and, explain their erratic behavior and hopefully put out a, kind of an interview or something that explains it and gets the project back on track. That's one of the scenarios that Warner's is hoping for. The second scenario, they don't reach out for help. They just kind of quietly do what they're doing. Warner still releases the film, but they don't expect Miller to play any prominent role in terms of marketing or publicity. they'll just kind of gloss over that they are in it, and the Flash will move forward, come out, and by the end of the film, they've recast the Flash going forward. Now, whether he'll be recast, they will be recast in the film or after, remains to be seen. The third case, though, and this is something that Warner's is supposedly actually considering, that things go from bad to worse. Miller's situation continues to deteriorate, and Warner's outright kills the movie because there's no way to reshoot it. They are in just about every shot of the film because they play multiple characters. Besides Barry Allen, the Flash is, it's a multiverse story, so they play multiple versions of Barry Allen. So it would be an unprecedented move to scrap a $200 million film, but that really is on the table at this point, depending on what happens with Ezra Miller going forward. So don't be surprised. I mean, if you keep watching the news, there's a good chance we're going to see more and more stuff. I don't know. They seem to be going through a meltdown. Every day there seems to be something new. The thing that came out about a felony for breaking into a home and stealing alcohol and being caught on camera. There were reports that they were filming reshoots for The Flash while they were on the run from the police, which that doesn't speak well for a lot of people, but depending on how much they knew. Overall, it's an absolute mess, and I am hoping that the first scenario is the one that plays out, that Ezra Miller reaches out to get help and gets the help, and that Warner Brothers is one of the people backing it, and they put out the money to help Ezra, and that they get their lives back on track. Now, whether they play the Flash ever again, that doesn't matter to me. That they stop this incredibly self-destructive behavior, yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see Ezra Miller get their life back on track. So, that's the thing that concerns me. And I don't care if the movie ends up coming out or not. I really don't at this point. It would be sad because that's the only other movie that Michael Keaton has shot for. So it's like completely taking away all of Michael Keaton's returns. But the bottom line, Ezra Miller needs help, is definitely self-destructing, and I'm hoping they get that help. So, all right. Now, we are going to talk about Sandman, but let's go ahead and take our first break. That way we're clear, and we can come back and just talk about Sandman. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning into The Experience. Help us out and hit subscribe over on YouTube, and click the bell when you do. Need some help? Scan the QR code in the bottom corner.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. And today we are going to be talking about the Sandman. So there will be spoilers. So let's roll the spoiler thing. But we're only going to talk about the first 3 episodes. So if you're into it, but haven't got that far, don't worry, we're not going to get too far ahead. But we're also talking about something that a lot of people have already read. So, and it is holding pretty close to the comics from what I can well, actually, I can't say if it's holding close to the comics. I have not read the comics. I am not a Vertigo guy. I didn't read a lot of Vertigo books coming up. I'm more of a superhero guy, though I did read the hell out of Swamp Thing. I am definitely a Swamp Thing fan and a John Constantine fan. And, I'm sorry, Constantine. But I never did get into Sandman or Death and the High Cost of Living. Those books just never were my cup of tea. I had a friend of mine who was absolutely obsessed with Death. Just thought it was the best book ever made. But yeah, so I think of Sandman, I think of Wesley Dodds. I don't think of the Dreaming and the Endless. That said, a year or so back, I got a hold of the full cast recording of the audiobook, and I listened to the first part. I have the second one as well. I just haven't gotten to that one yet. And I remember getting into it and really enjoying him looking for his tools. I remember really enjoying that stuff and more tolerating the John Dee stuff. It wasn't my favorite. And then when we get to the 24-hour diner, I just about stopped listening to it. That it was just so far out of what I enjoy that, but I got my way through it and, got back. And then once we got through the main story with Rose and all that stuff, it just seemed kind of weird after that, So that was my thoughts on it, listening to the audiobook. I thought the audiobook was amazing. The cast was wonderful. But I was a little hesitant, like I said, because the thing that stuck out to me was that 24-hour diner scene. Now, I know that the 24-hour diner scene doesn't take place till like episode 6. And I know there are some people who say that's the best episode. And I know that a lot of people, that's just their thing. Oh, I've also heard that it's different, that it's done in a different way. So I'm going to keep going through this. But we're going to talk about the first 3 episodes. Episode 1. I am not a fan of binge watch dropping because I think it hurts TV shows. I was talking about this a little earlier. I think by releasing on a weekly schedule, you end up building more hype for your TV show. You get more word of mouth. You get more viewers getting a chance to find it. And it just, I really think it makes for a better show. It makes your show last longer. It gives your show a better chance of being renewed. There's a lot of stuff that ends up on Netflix that get, oh, we got a big weekend, and then it just disappears. Oh, Stranger Things is great, and then we're away from it. Or The Witcher. I love The Witcher. But you watch the whole thing in a weekend, and then you stop talking about it. When I was reviewing stuff for Bleeding Cool, I would do that. I'd watch like all of the Daredevil season, and then I'd do one review. And it wasn't until Altered Carbon came out, and I decided to do it differently and watch one episode and then review that episode and then watch the next and do that for the whole season. And our numbers on viewership of those review articles they skyrocketed because we broke down each one. We didn't just lump it into one thing. And I think a lot of ways you lose some of the best moments of a TV show because you just kind of keep going and keep going and keep going. And then at the end, you talk about it. So, where you can get the hook episode or something as simple as, my point being that you get more bang for your buck when there's a week in between, when there's time in between. Hey, Edward, how you doing? Hey, Jeff. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the drop them all at once. That said, this is a show that definitely needed to have 2 episodes dropped in the first week if it was a weekly. The first episode, and I remember listening to it and being pretty engaged with the whole Roderick Burgess part of it. I remember it being very interesting. The first episode for me was slow. It didn't really dig into the characters. It's like, well, we've got all this we've got to put into it. We've got all this set up. But they kind of took the interesting parts out of it and just made it this very slow, long, drawn-out first episode. I mean, the only thing they did to brighten it up a little bit is they decided to introduce the Corinthian way early. The Corinthian pops up in the first part, where in the comics he doesn't show up until the 10th comic. So they decide, okay, I guess they kind of needed a big bad. And when you read the comics, you get to the Corinthian later, but the whole first part is about him regaining his tools. Well, somebody went, and maybe it was Neil Gaiman, maybe someone else suggested it. They started introducing the Corinthian early. Now, I'll give him credit. Boyd Holbrook, who's playing the Corinthian, is very interesting. I find him more interesting on screen than I did in the comic. The Corinthian was just this kind of weird-ass serial killer, where here there's definitely more to him. There's, he's manipulative. He's actively trying to protect himself. He knows what's going on. He has agency. So I do like that. I do like that they've upped the Corinthian a bit. Even though I'm not a big fan of the character from the comics, the way they're using him in the TV series, I think helps a lot. And it does make everything feel connected. In the comics, it felt like, okay, we're doing this story arc, and then we're doing this story arc, and then we're going to do this story arc, where this does feel more like a cohesive series. Edward said, very slow, so slow. I haven't tried episode 2 yet. I plan on it, but haven't. Edward, if it is your type of show, definitely give episodes 2 and 3 a try. They're much more upbeat. There's much more story to it. And I came out of those much happier with the series. And I didn't dislike the first episode, but I kind of knew it was going to be slow. But Kyle says, I felt like the show needed a third-person narrator, and the Corinthian can play that role. Yeah, they do need a narrator role. And I think in the audiobook, it was Neil Gaiman playing that. So the Corinthian does kind of connect the dots. But yeah, the first episode, it was great seeing Charles Dance as Roderick. I like him a lot. He was great in Game of Thrones. He was good here, but it really didn't get much of what made Roderick interesting. The whole mages thing, how long, he was alive. All of that got kind of. Maybe they would have needed 2 episodes to do this if they had done all the depth to the characters. But at the same time, it would have been very slow. So it was kind of a catch-22. But I like Charles Dance. Tom Sturridge as Morpheus is awesome. It literally is like someone took the character from the page, pulled him out, and made him a human. I mean, I don't know what the casting process was, if they had seen this guy and just knew he was the one, or if they got a ton of photos in and went, okay. The guy really is Morpheus. So from that point of view, I thought he was great. But yeah, it just felt like the first episode became a necessary evil. It's like, yeah, it's not the best episode. There's a ton of stuff you need to understand about, oh yeah, he's one of the endless. He's dreaming. He's got Jessene, the Raven. All of this stuff just kind of came out. But you really didn't get the depth of the characters of exactly what Roderick did, or Alex, and how long. I mean, Alex went from a kid to an early adult, a young adult, to old, like that. And his relationship with Paul just kind of got just done so quickly. So Kyle says, my plane is here. I'll hang out as long as I can. Okay. Edward, I don't know if it's my kind of show or not yet. That's why I'm not giving up on it. I have 0 experience with Sandman. I went in with high expectation from everyone hyping it and was kind of left wondering why. Again, the first episode is not a good example of what the show's doing. And again, I think it was a necessary evil. I think they had to give that part. They had to explain that he was held captive for, is it close to 100 years? I mean, it's a long time. It's from the night. I mean, because if they're doing this in modern days, it's like 100 years, because it was the 1910s, 1920s that he got captured. So yeah, he was in that glass thing for a long time, and the ruby and all those things were keeping Roderick alive until his son got into it with him. So, but that's really my thoughts on the first episode. There really wasn't a lot to it. It didn't really even set the tone. In the comics, it's not quite 100. Okay. Yeah, where I think they're moving it along a little bit, because we're in 2022 now. So the first episode, if you can get through it, I think it'll pay off to watch the ones after it. But I can see a lot of people having a hard time getting through that first episode, because I know a lot of people who are loving this show know the stuff that's coming up or have a good feel for it. But the first episode is really slow. Hey, Ship. Episode 2. With him out of the jar. That's much better for me. That is when the show starts picking up. It's, like I said, it's him returning to the dreaming. It's a chance for us to see Lucien. I mean, we got a little bit of Lucien, but we get more of Lucien. We get Ethel Cripps. We get Cain and Abel, which I wasn't sure they were going to do Cain and Abel, because those are very much DC comic properties. And I think Asam Chaudhry was great as Abel. Sanjeev Bhaskar played Cain well. Didn't really look as much like Cain as I had hoped. I would like to have seen a little bit more. And again, it felt like they do so much with those guys in the comics that we don't get. And I feel like we were just kind of rushed through the whole thing with Cain and Abel. But at the same time, can you explain really quick who he is? If not, that's okay. I don't want to waste people's time. Okay. There are the Endless, and they're Edward, you never wasted people's time. See, that's good. I don't know if I'm the best one to explain, but from what I understand, the Endless is this group of godlike creatures that take care of different areas of the afterlife, not the afterlife, but just there's dreaming, there's desire, there's death. I don't even remember who all the Endless are, but there's like 7 of them, I believe. They're all brothers and sisters. And dreaming is the king of the realm of dreams. So basically your dreams and your nightmares exist in his realm. And he captures some of them when they're too much. But when you dream, you go to his realm. And when he left, the dreams that exist there, because he wasn't there and because the dreaming is him, it started to decay. The Endless are beings that control emotion and things not controlled by gods. All right, Kyle. Good call. Yeah. So they are the anthropomorphized concepts. Okay. Thanks, JD. So that's the idea, is that Dream or Morpheus is the embodiment of dreams. He has the power of dreams. Yeah. We're going to meet some of the other ones later on. We'll meet, I think, Desire and Death. We definitely get an episode with Death. So, and they don't necessarily get along all the time. But yeah, so that's what he is. He's the anthropomorphized concept of dreams. And he controls dreams, and he controls nightmares. And sometimes nightmares becomes desire. Thank you. When a dream gets out of control or a nightmare gets out of control, he reins it in. That's his gig. So he is like the Sandman. That's why he gets the name Sandman. All right, talking about Cain and Abel. Again, it just seems like there could have been so much more with them. They're such odd characters from DC Comics that if you're going to keep them in, then it feels like they should have got a little more time. Maybe they'll get some more going on. But at the same time, I found myself tearing up for frickin' Gregory the Gargoyle. How they got that much emotion into that little bit of a scene just blows my mind. You know? Yeah, Edward, the guy in the bubble is the Sandman. And the pouch he has is the sand that allows him to control dreams. The mask and the ruby that get taken away, those are the tools he uses. So they become important. And the first thing he does when he gets out is he tries to find those. So, yeah, Richard makes a good point. He is the gatekeeper of what he creates. So he creates the dreams and stuff. So, yeah, I thought it was amazing that they were able to get that much emotion out of that small a scene, which shows good writing. And I love the fact that he replaces the gargoyle with a new one. Now, why a snake had a gargoyle egg, I'm not sure. But they get Irving. And again, that's all straight from the comics. The whole idea that you can't name a gargoyle Irving because it's not a G. The whole thing of Cain and Abel killing each other. And if for some reason you don't get Cain and Abel are the biblical Cain and Abel, that's why Cain keeps killing Abel. You know, Cain is the first murderer, Abel is the first victim. They're going to do that a lot. Yeah. Well, the series is him getting back his tools and dealing with the Corinthian. And a couple other dreams that escape. So it's him getting back his tools and reestablishing his realm and capturing the ones who got away. That's what the series is going to be about, or at least. Okay, good point. I've realized that BB may have seen the whole thing. I've only seen the first 3, so it might not cover all of it. I don't know what they're going to keep for season 2. But yeah, the second episode I thought was much better paced. We get into him returning to the dream world, into him trying to use his powers, dealing with the fates, seeing the fates, I thought was awesome. I love the fact that all 3 times he tried to ask an extra question. And all 3 times they had to go, I don't know enough about the Corinthians. It's not quite the same. The guy with the sunglasses that we see, that's the Corinthian. He's kind of the big bad for this season. BB says he's only 5 episodes in, but he likes the cinematography and the mood and atmosphere. So, yeah, it is really well shot. And you see it a lot in the issues. We're only going to talk about through the first 3 episodes, BB. But you do see that a lot, especially in the 3rd episode. They do a really good job of it. But I liked that they brought Cain and Abel into it. I was worried that they would just... I didn't know how much they were going to be able to keep the characters that are from the DC universe, because this really isn't a DC property. I mean, it is, but they're kind of doing it off on their own. So there's Lyda and Hector Hall. There's John Constantine. There's a lot of characters that pop up, Dr. Destiny and stuff like that. So we know they're going to downplay some of it. From what I understand, even though we meet John D., David Thewlis, we never see him referred to as Dr. Destiny. He's always just called John or John D. And they do make a change to Constantine, but we'll get to that. But the second episode, we get more of the Corinthian actually dealing with Ethel, and we kind of get an idea of what happened to Ethel. And that's the thing, is that Ethel seemed like a much bigger character in the books in the Roderick phase, but we're barely touched on her. She shows up one night, and then she's just there, and then she's leaving, sneaking away and stealing stuff. But they really don't establish her that much. I don't know. Again, I just really didn't like. I liked, but I didn't like the first episode, because it feels like they just went, yes, we need to do this first episode. We're just going to do it as simply as possible, cram it all into one episode and move on, where it probably could have been two, but it would have been really slow. So, but yeah, so let's go ahead and get to the third episode. Now, the third episode is where I think things really start to pick up, and we really get into the search for his tools, because we get him going after the first tool, which is the pouch of sand. And okay, so he's a Corinthian. Got it. Thanks for explanations. Everyone was really lost. Oh, yes, and he goes by many names, right? So I also thought it was interesting that we get to see underneath the sunglasses or behind the sunglasses, but they really don't give us a good look at it. It's like, you can tell that his eyes are teeth, but it's not like, that horror movie moment. It's more done like from a distance, which seems kind of weird to me. It's like, yeah, we don't want to show you the gory stuff. Yeah, he's got eyes for teeth, or teeth for eyes, which is really weird. But we're just going to show it to you from like an up angle from the side. And yeah, that struck me as kind of strange. It seems like he'd have that big reveal and you'd have the eyes chomp chomp, but no, they never did that. And maybe they're saving that, and we're not supposed to have noticed that. We're supposed to go back later and go, oh, he's got some weird eyes. But this third episode was one of my favorite in the comics, or in the audiobook, because it felt the most grounded into things I understood. In the audiobook, John Constantine. Now, first thing they pronounce it Constantine, and I'm trying to go with that, but it's been John Constantine my entire life, and he shows up on his own show, in all the animated features, and in DC's Legends of Tomorrow as John Constantine, and now suddenly he's John Constantine. All right, but of course they changed to Joanne Constantine. And I am not somebody that, I really, I'm not the one that gets up in arms when they make changes like that. I don't care. If you're telling a good story, you're telling a good story. I had a problem with the switch on this one. And it's probably because I knew the story going in from having listened to the audiobooks. I like John Constantine. And I'm used to Jenna Coleman in a very different role from Doctor Who. It never worked for me. Her as Constantine, her just up and leaving her girlfriend, that really, it didn't work for me, you know? And again, it's not me going, oh, they can't gender bend things, because I think they do that to a few other characters in here. You know, and we have some trans characters, and I don't care about any of that stuff. That's fine. Tell me a good story, and I'm good with it. But I think because having Constantine in the series helps me connect to it when I was listening to it. It kind of grounded it for me in the DC universe, that changing that character again, and I know a lot of people have no problems with it, and a lot of people have problems with it for very bad reasons. My problem with it just, it was what grounded me into the series, and if it had been a different actress, it might have been different. But I would have loved it if they would have just cast Matt Ryan. You know, I'm so used to Matt Ryan as Constantine now. I mean, from what I understand, he's going to show up on the Harley Quinn series as Constantine. It's just, he's kind of become Constantine, and it just really kind of threw me off. And I never really got into the episode as much as I probably would have. This episode, though, it's supposed to be kind of a morality tale, or a way to show a bit of humanity to Morpheus, to see that not all people are bad. And what's funny is this is also when we get introduced to Matthew. Matthew is the new Raven. He loses Jessame in the first episode, but we get this new one, and he's voiced by Patton Oswalt, which is great because Patton Oswalt was the voice of Matthew in the audiobooks too. I believe he's the one actor that carries over. So, familiar voice. But he is talking bad about humanity, having just been a human and now being a bird, which I think is interesting. So he's talking about how bad humanity is, while Constantine is trying to show him, well, doesn't try to, but is actually trying to help him. And we see that this ex-girlfriend of hers basically, dies because his tools got lost in the mix of things. Now, we never really get a good explanation of how his sand and the pouch got from Ethel Cripps through whatever number of people to Constantine. And I don't remember if they cover that in the book or the audiobook. Kyle probably could tell us, but I have a feeling Kyle is probably on his plane now, since he hasn't said anything in a while. But that would have been interesting. I would like to have known how it got past, who Ethel originally sold it to, if it got through to any other interesting characters, and how it ended up with Constantine. Fine. Also, there's the older woman that knows that Morpheus is back and is telling Joanna that she's back. We don't really get much on her. We don't get much on the priest, Rick the Vic, who is another gender-bent character. But again, that one didn't care. It was fine. And the whole, saving the princess and thing. That was all fun and cool. But like I said, I really enjoyed the episode, and the show is getting better to me as we go. But I have problems with it. So, all right, we need to do one more quick commercial break, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about Sandman. So we'll be right back.
Get the inside scoop on everything happening at the Experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons: to sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
There's a super new way to support your friends over at The Experience. Head over to YouTube and send us a super chat, a super sticker, or a super thanks. We'll be super grateful for your support, and then keep an eye out as we launch membership services over on YouTube. It'll be a great way to get first look access at new content and shows before anybody else. Keep your eyes peeled and make sure you're following us on YouTube.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about what appears to be the other show happening in this show, and that is Ethel and her son John. Now, great casting, Jolie Richardson and David Thewlis. David Thewlis is one of those actors that always kills it in whatever role he's given, but he's not somebody you think about a lot. And I mean, he's been in some great. He's a regular from the Harry Potter books or the series. He was in Wonder Woman as Ares. He's been in a lot of great things, and he's always really good. And he's got such a unique background. I just love the fact that he actually Thewlis isn't his birth name; it's his mother's maiden name. He was born David Wheeler, but he took her name as an actor, and he grew up in a combination, above his parents' combination wallpaper and toy shop, which I'm not sure how you get that combination. How do you go, we're going to sell wallpaper, but we got a little extra room over there. Let's sell some toys. Doesn't seem like they go together. And he actually went to London to be a musician. He was in a band called Door 66, but ended up changing and joining the Guildhall School of Drama, and then just kind of went a different direction. So I just like that backstory of growing up in a wallpaper / toy shop. Yeah, I'm not even sure how you make that combination. So, but I think he's great casting for John Dee. And for those who don't know, and I don't think they're going to talk about it, John Dee is Dr. Destiny from comics. And he has access to Sandman's ruby, which allows him to make dreams come true. And he is going to be a big part of the next couple episodes. And we're going to parallel stories as I think next episode, Sandman's going to try to get his helm back from hell. We learned that in the third episode. While John is now out of the asylum and out, and again, John meeting the Corinthian doesn't happen in the comics. They're kind of using the Corinthian to put everything together. But David DeWellis was a great casting for that. And as disturbing as I know what's coming, I think it's going to be great having him be that character. It's you can't knock the casting in this show for the most part. David Thewellis, Charles Dance, Tom Sturridge. I mean, these guys are all great. And I like Jenna Coleman a lot. It's a personal thing for me that I just wanted John Constantine. And just, yeah. Dr. Destiny is the son of Madame Xanadu. Am I getting that wrong? I thought it was right. No, he's Dr. Destiny, yeah. John Dee, Sandman Wiki, yeah. Dr. Destiny is a supervillain appearing in American comic published by DC Comics. Jeremy Davis portrayed the character in the live-action TV series and CWs. Oh, that's right. He showed up in Arrowverse, too. Interesting. Forgot about that. Yeah, but he's going to be a big part of what's going to happen in the next couple weeks or next couple episodes. And then it all becomes about the Corinthians. So once Morpheus gets his stuff back, it becomes about the Corinthian. But, all right, the change was made in the new 52. Okay. All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up there. We will talk more about Sandman next week. I will get at least 3 more episodes in. I don't want to, like I said, I want to talk about it over time. So I will try to get through episode 6, maybe on Tuesday, talk about it. Kyle should be I don't know if Kyle will be back by then. I think Kyle will be back by then, in which case we'll have him on the show. He's a huge fan, so we'll get him on here. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't yet on the way out. Or if you're on Facebook, hit the thumbs up. And we will talk next week. Have a great weekend. Stick around for all the great stuff on the experience. And I'll see you on Tuesday. Good night, everybody.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.